if that. So it's pretty small, to like all around the actual ring. So like they were literally right in front of us, and it's heckling is a way bigger thing in fake wrestling in the amateur division or whatever you want to call it. So like they want you to yell and scream. So you're like, it was hilarious. People were making fun of the wrestlers, and then the wrestlers would be like, "Whoa, you want to come in?" And maybe it was all in jest, but it was great. Axel was losing his mind. It was awesome.
So happy.
Yeah.
Axel's the man. I saw he has his own YouTube channel, and
it's forever since he put anything on there. He's so little, but he does have his own YouTube channel about his jiu-jitsu life.
There's one where's about 8 minutes of him taking two figurines and having them wrestle each other, and I'm like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, and him telling, yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I forgot he did that. He was going through a match with the two figurines.
That was beautiful.
I forgot about that. I should go check it out again. That is funny.
We should, if we're ever sick again or something, instead of this Zoom, we should just post that as the live and be like, our work is done, guys.
Yeah. Well, actually, I made a post about Axel yesterday, because in his mind, he doesn't understand it's fake yet. I think he's starting to get the gist, but he doesn't want to believe it. Yeah. In his mind, the WWE is like the epitome of fighting and being that's like the best of the best. So in his mind, for him to get there, he's like, Dad, he came to me and he had his plan. And he goes, Dad, first, I need to get really good at jiu-jitsu. And if I get good at jiu-jitsu, then I can go into the UFC. And if I become a UFC champion, then I can go into NXT, which is like the minor leagues of fake wrestling. And then when I get to be a fake, after I do well in NXT and become a champion, then they might invite me to be a WWE superstar. I was like, I love it. And he's taking action towards it, which is way more important.
I say that's huge for him. How old is he again?
9.
Dude, what a champ.
God, 9 years old. It's been that long. Jeez.
I know, right?
I remember when Beth was pregnant with him. Oh, man.
Really? I didn't realize it was that long, but you're right.
17.
Cow, yeah.
Well, that was 7? No, maybe it was 2 years before. Yeah, I think that was 17. So yeah,
it was Kenna.
Kenna.
I bet Axel's like 2-ish, and Beth was pregnant.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool beans.
It doesn't matter the age. I have my son that's 18, and he'll have a big debacle with you on how real WWE is. Please.
Oh, yeah, that's so funny. So Axel, he and this other kid was we went to an event in Greensboro, and this other kid was like Axel's same age and just as into it, and like they were walking encyclopedias of WWE, and somebody said something about being fake, and they just lit into this guy and told him everything on how it's totally real. They have injuries, they've seen it on TV, and then while like they're fighting, this guy gets super kicked in the face, and they both look at the guy and they say, "Do you think that's fake?" Everybody was erupting. It was hilarious. You think that's fake? You want to get super kicked in the face? I don't think so. So funny.
That's amazing. I want to watch Axel watch one of these.
No. That's the best part. I'm going to do that after we get off the call on this tonight is Monday Night Raw. That's the best part. But now he's on to me. He's always like, looking where my phone is because he doesn't like me because he's like, he's up, he's shaking. He's like, dude, he's like calling out all the moves before they happen. It's hilarious.
It's amazing.
I was like, you can be better at school with this great of a memory. But
oh yeah, right. For something important.
100%. All right. Well, cool guys. So Jeff, I know this is last minute, but are you cool to talk about kind of what you've been through?
Sure, absolutely.
Awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to lead in with Jeff kind of telling his story since January, and how he's changed and the things that have been beneficial for him, the hopes being that they can empower you to make better choices as well. If you have questions for him or whatnot, definitely ask. And then after that, what we're going to dive into are basically the three key things for achieving sustainable weight loss, specifically when it comes to losing weight and then maintaining it and sustaining it. Cool. All right. So Jeff, I guess just tell us a little bit about your background and where you were before January and kind of what compelled you to get started.
Well, I worked in IT. I was a consultant for healthcare IT, implementing electronic medical records around the country. And in 2019, right before COVID, I just said, I quit. Take this job and serve it. I had enough. So I retired, and so I have a pension from Florida, and, I had a little investment. So I just called it quits. Anyway, but during that time, I just didn't have a lot of time for exercising because you're doing 12-hour days, and those pounds add up, and pandemic pounds added up. And lo and behold, in 2023, I weighed 260 pounds. I was a size 42 pants. And
oh, wow. What are you now?
33, 34.
That's insane. I didn't realize you were 32.
It feels good.
Yeah, I bet.
I'll tell you, the pants are huge. I mean, anyway, so, and I had to vacate my whole closet. I had to go get all new clothes, shirts, pants, belts, nothing fit.
Yeah, those are the expenses we don't tell you about before you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, some of it's tax deductible. I donated it. God, I didn't have anything. And just, I was losing weight. So make this to get back. So in January, I got connected with Kellen and Fitness One, and it was been a real life-changing experience. I guess you could say that, and very, very sincerely, because not only between the diet, which I really needed to detox from the processed food and eat real food, not near food, but real food.
That's right.
And just get on track with the caloric intake and the protein and all the different macro ingredients in my foods, and monitoring it and making sure I log it and keeping track of it. That was the beginning. Now I'm going to tell you, it's not really that easy when you've not been used to doing stuff like that, because I never was with Weight Watchers or any of those other things. So I just was very meticulous about it because I was very motivated. I wanted to lose this weight. So between that and the program that they set up for you is tailored towards, obviously what you can tolerate, but it's very aggressive time. They're supersets. You have very little rest time and recovery time between sets. So your heart rate's pumping, your muscles are pumped, you're going. So, what takes a person an hour to do what normally would take 30 minutes to do with the trainers. So with that said, and between that and the diet that I was on, and it wasn't impossible, it was just food, eggs and proteins, and not junk, but no pastas, very little carbs. You just learn to eat what you're supposed to. And lo and behold, I start getting on that scale. I mean, I'm going, dang, in a week, 5 pounds, 3 pounds. And it just continued on till I lost almost 60 pounds in 4.5 months.
Yeah. And there's so many questions I want to ask you, but one in particular, one thing I caveat, the reason Jeff was able to lose the weight so fast is because prior to this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but I'm pretty sure we talked about this, there was little to no dieting for probably 10, 20 years or something.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, yeah. Because when I was working, I wasn't on a diet when I was in Florida. So, and then when I hit the road, I mean, then it was even worse.
Yeah. And so the reason I bring that up is because typically males, right, wrong, or indifferent, we don't diet. So we just kind of get bigger and bigger and bigger. And what that does is women, when they typically, this is stereotyping, yo-yo diet a ton. And that over time really hurts your metabolism. And because dieting and restricting his calories was so new to Jeff's body, he responded as if he were quote unquote on steroids, if you will. Okay.
I agree. It did. I was amazed. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But it was great.
And one of the reasons Jeff was able, his body responded that way, is because his metabolism, because he'd been eating an influx of calories and food, not the best food for so long, his body, even the slight caloric deficit, made a huge impact. And so stereotyping for if you've done a lot of dieting, your metabolism is going to be a little bit hurt. Okay. Some people's worse than others. And then your results might not be as fast because of that. That's super, super common. So I didn't want to put that caveat in there. And then the question I also wanted to ask you, Jeff, because I know a little bit of your history, is prior when you were younger, when you were in Florida, you were in phenomenal shape because you showed me the picture.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was working out when I was working. I was a respiratory therapist and I worked in IT in a county hospital in Miami. If anybody's been down there, it's Jackson Memorial Hospital. But I had a trainer that I used to go to when I get off work, and I would do that, 3-4 days a week too. So I got in really good shape. And my normal weight was 180, 190, 32, 34-inch waist. I mean, that's been the norm for me for most of my life, my adult life anyway.
And how old were you during that time?
Early 50s, late 50s. Yeah. Or late 40s, early 50s. Yeah. Right.
And then just out of curiosity, because I do not know the answer to this question, what's the difference between what you did then and what you're doing now?
Well, it was mostly the nutritional support that I'm getting, because I had a really good trainer. Not to say that I don't now, but I had he pushed me. Believe me, he did some funky things with me, but we got there. But yeah, so the nutritional part of it was really the deal that broke the camel's straw with me, because I really needed to have control over what I was putting in my mouth and just stick to it. And that's what I did. And I was very meticulous, and I made sure that, and it helps. I mean, I know a lot of people are working and they don't have a lot of time to really, prepare and do things. But I think that I was retired and I had time to really invest in that, which paid off, because when you start seeing those pounds drop and you start seeing your pants get loose and your shirts get loose, it's motivating. You don't want to go back. You want to keep going. So
100%. Yeah. And then, so I guess, what do you think was the most helpful? I think you kind of answered it, but just to double check, what do you think was the singular most helpful thing for you in losing the weight that we helped you with? Or what was the most helpful thing in general, actually?
Motivation, just being engaged in the program and having confidence that you can do it. Mm-hmm. And then when you start seeing that you get the results, it builds the confidence that you are going to do it. And just being just disciplined. I think that's the big thing, is being disciplined, because you can be motivated all day long. Oh, I'm motivated. I'm going to do it. Yeah. But are you doing it? Are you disciplined? Are you really in the program, in the trenches, doing it? And that's where the rubber hits the road there.
Yeah.
And just
cool.
To throw in there, Kellen, as further caveats too. So Jeff, he had a very good firm base of, like you said, he was in phenomenal shape, so a ton of muscle mass. He didn't have a history of yo-yo dieting, stopped with his metabolism. He also was extremely, extremely active. He was always either doing work around the house, doing yard work, walking his dogs. So all of that helped him shed the pounds. Also, I can think of maybe one day where he left off like 2 meals. Other than that, his nutrition was like perfectly logged consistently, hitting his protein every day, all fruits and veggies, all whole foods. So
I was working out too. I mean, you'd set up weekend workouts for me because I have, bow flex and free weights, and, I was doing that too.
Yes. So 100% that too. So he was on point in all those aspects and super consistent. And so that's part of why he was so consistent in the weight loss. And then also keep in mind too, that you lose weight as a percentage of your weight. So someone who's like, 260 pounds will be losing a lot more weight a lot more quickly than someone who's like 160, 180. So don't compare your numbers to Jeff's per se, because there's all those other factors that will affect it. What matters most is losing a healthy amount of weight quickly while maintaining as much muscle as possible. But that's part of why he's been achieving such legendary results.
But it is possible. I mean, if I can do it, anybody can do it. I mean, seriously. I mean, I was You look at pictures of me back then, you would not believe where I look now. It's an entirely different person, but it is possible. I mean, you can do it, and it's with this program. If you follow, the guidelines and you stick to it, and you're motivated and you're disciplined with it, it works.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, awesome. Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
So that was kind of unplanned, but awesome. All right. So now, does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask Jeff? You can put them in the comments below, or you can just unmute and talk, which is totally cool if you want some tips and tricks from Jeff. And I'll start calling out people. No, I'm joking. I won't. If you don't, okay. Noah and I are kind of go. I'll do kind of an intro into what we're going to be talking about today. And so how it works is essentially there's 3 topics. Okay, we're going to talk about strength training. Okay, and why it's so important. We're going to be talking about progressive overload, and progressive overload is something that for the most part, any personal trainer, whether they're good or not, they typically they're cognizant of, but they don't do a very good job of implementing and using it because it's time consuming and it's hard. And that's something that we're probably spend the most time on is progressive overload. It's a simple concept, but typically not applied because it's time consuming, it's difficult, and you can't do it well at scale. And then the third thing we're going to be talking about is the importance of a personalized program, which also takes time, it's for scale. From a money standpoint, if you're a personal trainer, you don't want to typically invest that much time into it because it's better if you can have a whole bunch of people, all of them, a big class. We're going to break that down. All right. So this kind of a brief recap of what we talked about previously that builds on strength training, if you don't mind.
Sorry, you cut out near the last second there. What was that last one?
Oh, sorry. Just give us a brief recap on like metabolism, and then get into strength training.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So kind of like we talked about last week. So metabolism is basically the word to use all the calories that you burn, and it's a combination of all the factors. So there's basal metabolic rate, which is pretty much the calories you burn at rest. So if you just laid flat on a couch and didn't move at all for 24 hours, it would be the calories burned there. On top of that, you add the thermic effect, which is pretty much the calories you burn from the food that you consume, because it actually does burn calories to digest them. And fun fact that protein burns more calories to digest than the other ones. So that's another reason to increase your protein intake. On top of that, there's also NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is pretty much all the subconscious activities that you do that contribute to the calories that you burn, so like tapping your foot during this meeting, or pacing back and forth on a phone call, taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Just all these little things that add up over time. And it doesn't sound like much, but it's up to 30 to 40% of your total calories burned.
Which is huge.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And then on top of that too is your actual strength training, cardio, all the one stuff you're burning through specific workouts. And so if you put all those together, you'll get the total calories you burn for the day. Excuse me. Sorry. That's kind of starts the brief overview. What we went. Kellen, anything you want to add?
No. So no. You do that phenomenally well. So that's why I don't even try. So now, so strength training. So you hear strength training, you hear resistance training, thrown out a lot. And a lot of times, right, wrong, or indifferent, most people don't know what that means, or they have a vague idea of what that means. So when we say strength training or resistance training, I honestly prefer resistance training, but typically that's even harder for people to grasp. So resistance training and strength training are synonymous. Okay. They mean the same thing. And you can do this with body weight movements. You can do this with bands. Probably the most efficient, best way to do it is with weights, though you don't have to use them. TRX, all kinds of different things. But basically, the concept of strength training is simply putting stimulus on your body that compels it to grow muscle. Okay. And growing muscle is by far the most important thing when it comes to increasing your metabolism, especially as we age. Okay. And they're when it comes, it's like if you I was actually reading this today, and I'd never actually seen a statistic. I just heard. So if you gain 5 pounds of muscle, okay, which if you've never done resistance training or done it well, done programmed well, you're going to increase your resting metabolic rate, your BMR, your base metabolic rate by 250 calories. Okay, just 5 pounds of muscle. That's it. Now there's some caveats there. Like if you're like 100 pounds and you go to 105, that's not the case. But a typical person is going to increase how many calories they burn at rest sleeping by 250 calories, which is massive if you think about the long-term ramifications. Any add-ons, Noah?
Yeah, well, I like what you said where that 250 doesn't sound like much, but we could even do the math. And let's say you're eating at maintenance calories. So like, let's say 2000 calories, and all you did was increase the calories you burn by 250 over the course of a year. So 250 calories a day times 365. So that'd be how many calories you're in a deficit for the year, divided by 3,500 is how many pounds. That alone would have you burn or lose 26 pounds in a year.
Boom.
That's how much. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
So that's if you didn't change. I mean, ideally you would, but if you didn't change your diet and you had a good strength training program and you were consistent and you didn't consume any more calories than you typically did, you could lose that much weight, and as you gain the 5 pounds of muscle, granted, that's the potential. Isn't that insane?
Yeah. And
the way you look in the mirror would be, the difference would be stupid. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I would add that's more sciencey is like strength. When you do strength training workouts, your body creates micro damage. Okay. So actually this is something weird. When you work out, you're actually in what's called a catabolic state. Okay. So and the catabolic state is a fancy word for saying your body is breaking down. It's creating micro tears, micro damage. Most people, yours truly, even when I was younger, I thought when I was working out, I was in an anabolic state. I thought my muscles were growing and getting bigger the more I worked out. It was like an air gun, kind of like in a balloon. I was pumping those suckers up. That's not how it works. When you're working out, you're actually damaging your body. Okay. Which was also why when I was younger and I'd work out for like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, which was stupid, but I did it, is I wasn't progressing nearly as fast as I could have been because my body never had time. It was always in a catabolic state. It was never in an anabolic state. It was always getting torn down. Okay. But because so as you work out, you create micro tears, and assuming your nutrition is on point and assuming you have a good program and you're not overdoing it, it creates it's a process called muscle protein synthesis. And that process alone also increases the amount of calories you burn because your body has to work so hard to repair the muscle damage that you created. And then there's a fancy term for that. It's called EPOC, which is exercise post-oxygen consumption. And where that got misused and abused, at least in my opinion, was the onset of I don't want to call any programs out, but of like real crazy metabolic conditioning. So think CrossFit workouts, high intensity, improperly like cardio with weights. Okay. And when the studies came out about EPOC, people went gung ho with it. I bought into the Kool-Aid too. Okay. Because that's what the science said. We just didn't understand how it related to muscle mass. But what happens when you do that, you burn out, you get injured, and your body never has time to repair. Because most people who train that way, one, they're not conditioned enough to do it and to do it well and safely. And then two, their nutrition is nowhere where it needs to be to even get close to benefit from that style.
And I'm really glad you called out, because what they also pushed a ton too is the amount of calories burned in EPOC, because your body actually has to work hard to repair. And so literally you'll see workouts all the time where it's like fat burning 15-minute high intensity interval training workout. And what they don't tell you is that EPOC is a percentage of the calories burned during the workout. So if you do a 15-minute super high intensity workout and you're going like, super hardcore, like you feel like you're dead afterwards, 15 minutes, let's say you burn like 100 calories, what you'll burn is about 10 to 15% of the calories burned during the workout. So you'll see all these workouts are like, yeah, I can do high intensity intervals. I can eat whatever I want the rest of the day. And then you do the math, and after the workout, you burn an extra like 15 calories. which is nowhere near what it sounds like.
It's not nearly as sexy. Yeah.
Yeah, versus like a strength training workout, if you're in there like an hour, or like a steady state, much more sustainable, lower intensity cardio workout, you'd actually have a higher EPOC than the low duration, high intensity workout, because there's more total calories burned during those. So don't listen to the Kool-Aid on that one either, because I remember seeing, Kellen, do you know, calling out people, I guess, Six Pack Shortcuts, do you remember that YouTube channel?
No, I'm not cool like you. I didn't do YouTube.
So he's famous for, he would have ads run all the time where it's literally just him and a table full of food of like a pound of sushi and like a full pizza and like cheeseburgers and fries. He's just eating all of it. He's like, yeah, this is fine. I can eat this because see, what I'm doing is high intensity workouts. And so I burn calories for the next 24 hours because my metabolism is heightened.
Yeah. No, that's called marketing.
Yeah. So don't listen to those guys. But yes, very important that you don't overtrain. Recovery is as important, if not more important, than the actual tearing down of the muscles.
So cool. So the whole point of that first section was strength training. If you do nothing else and you only have time, you only have like 60, 90 minutes a week to do anything, you want to focus your time on strength training. Okay. And I guess with that said, do you have any questions on strength training, what that looks like, how it can look like at home, anything there? And this is Coke Zero, by the way, so don't judge me.
I'll judge you because it tastes bad.
Valerie, I have a question. So with this, is the focus more on weight or the reps? You know, you hear high weights and low reps versus low weight and high reps and all that. So what's your focus here?
So that's a great question, Val. I love it. So it's neither. They are both. Low reps are valuable, higher reps are valuable. And there was a time, especially when I was growing up, what I was taught and what I read, this is what everybody believed. And I don't think it was honestly based on anything except for anecdotal experience, but it seemed like it made intuitive sense. So if you wanted to be, let's say, a power lifter, okay, you would focus on between 1 and 5 reps because that's strength based. Those are heavy sets, okay? And that's where you trained. If you wanted to work, I guess that'd be more like power. Let's say power athlete is 1 to 5. And let's say you wanted to be a strong man, for example. It was more like between 3 and 8 is kind of the rep range. And let's say you wanted to be a bodybuilder. Okay, then the sets were like typically the number of reps you wanted to do was 8 to 12, maybe up to, and if you want to do endurance, it was like 15 to 20. And we spent countless hours creating programs like me back in the day of incorporating all those things. And basically what has come out recently in the last probably 2 or 3 years is the reps don't matter as much as the intensity in which you're doing those things. And what that means is if you reach near muscular fatigue or failure, okay, with 5 reps, you are going to get stronger. If you approach failure around 15 to 20 reps, you're gonna get stronger. So the misconception there is the number of reps don't matter nearly as much as how fatigued and how intense you're going. Okay. And then your other question was like, I believe volume, right? How much weight is that correct, Valerie?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm walking. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So the volume question I love because people typically don't think about that. So if you were to stereotype most people, okay.
Hey, Kellen, just to jump in real quick. So sorry,
go ahead.
Your flow. As far as, can you explain them for volume? Because you're saying reps and weights. Can you explain to them what volume means and how we consider it in the field? Because that might be something new to people.
Actually, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sure. Cool.
Go for it.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I didn't mean to steal the thunder. I was just thinking. So as far as volume goes, that's something we use interchangeably. So like weight would be like the amount of resistance quantified by either like the tightness of the band or the weight itself, like how heavy it is, or like the difficulty of the body weight movement. Whereas volume is the number of reps and the number of sets you're doing. And so that was just kind of one quick change of the word, but I understand. I just want to make sure we catch that too.
No, that's good.
Yeah, appreciate it. And so just to add, I guess while I'm here on it, there's many things to add to that, which I love. So both inform each other, by the way. So if you see on your workout plan 8 to 12 reps on there, if you grab a weight that's way too heavy, you shouldn't force 8 to 12 reps with that weight that's way too heavy if your form's breaking at like 4 or 5, right?
Yes.
So one will inform the other. So you almost prescribe the number of reps, and then you'll grab a weight that you'll be able to fail in that range. Because I see people do it the other way too, where they could do 20 reps, but they stop at 15 because it's scheduled for 10 to 15. And so as Kellen was saying, muscular failure is what's most important. And so you'll see me here say that all the time, where they're like, oh, I got to 15. I'm like, I don't care. Your muscle can't read. All it cares is it feels the burn. And so when you hit muscular failure, that's what's most important. There's a couple things to add to that too. Muscular failure, you don't have to go quite too above and beyond like they thought back in the day. So bodybuilders would prescribe like literally like drop sets and like supersets, and like you'd be doing a set to failure, grab a similar workout or similar exercise that works the same muscle group, hit that one to failure, and then go down, like hit your bicep curls like 5 sets in a row, no rest. Like
drop pauses, baby.
Yes, drop pauses, and then forced reps, and like all these things to push it past failure and beyond. What they found was, if you work out, it's called RPE, rate of perceived exertion, and it's pretty much the difficulty of the movement. An 8 out of 10 and a 10 out of 10 difficulty for the movement have very similar yields and results. What they noticed, which is different though, and the way they quantify that is a 10 out of 10 means you literally could not physically do another rep if your life depended on it. 9 out of 10 means you could do 1 more. 8 out of 10 means you could do 2 more. So about 1 to 2 reps shy of failure is what you should shoot for, because they found that the gains didn't increase much, but your fatigue did, meaning it would take you much longer to recover if you pushed to failure, but you would see almost no benefit. And as you talk about, recovery is really important. It's really easy to overtrain, especially once you start seeing results, you get in the groove and you're like, I love this. This is amazing. On top of that, part of the reason why you hear different rep ranges prescribed for different things, which is true, all are beneficial, all will improve results. Think of it more as like a spectrum, right? So someone doing 15 to 20 reps will see strength gains and improvements. Someone in the 1 to 5 rep range will probably see a little bit more. Both will contribute to muscle growth at different areas. But if you change between them, you'll see the best results overall. The reason that you hear things like, 8 reps is for like if you want to get strong and look like a dude. 10 to 15 reps is like leaning and toning for females. So women on average have more type 1 muscle fibers than men. And what those muscle fibers are better at are enduring longer bouts of exercise. And so think of like a marathon runner versus a sprinter. So type 1 muscle fibers like marathon runners, where they can endure a lot more, they just can't generate as much power. Type 2 muscle fibers are like a sprinter, where they can accelerate and get up to speed really, really fast, but they can only last 100, 200 meters. So literally biologically, we're predisposed. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Valerie.
No, I was going to say, is that like fast twitch? I think I've heard that before, for like fast twitch muscles and slow twitch. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So fast twitch are type 2 and slow twitch are type 1. There's also type 2X, which kind of play a little bit of both sides, but that's not as important. So yeah, literally women are biologically predisposed to being better at type 1. So that's where you see them preferring higher rep ranges. And also there's a ton of marketing that was pushed towards them towards, super high reps, low rates, cardio. We won't get into that. But so that's where you can see the sexes were predisposed towards those, and they were gravitating towards those rep ranges, because men tend to be a lot better at the powerful exercises, but a little bit worse at the endurance ones, quote unquote.
And what's cool about that, and this is not anecdotal, but it's just something interesting that I learned. I went to a seminar, and they didn't even tell us what they were doing, but basically they had the girls get on one side, the guys get on the other side, and they had us find our 5 or 6 rep max, I don't forget which, in the bench press, and we did that. And then they had us find our 1 rep bench maxed out. And the difference for the guys was really, there's a big difference between how many things we could lift 5 times between our 1. So let's say I bench press 300 pounds. For 5, my 1 rep max was 365. Where females, their pain tolerance to do like 5 reps between what they could do 1 time was very, very similar. It was only like within 5 to 10 pounds on average. Granted, they weren't moving as much weight, But it goes back to reinforce what you were saying, is basically the max effort you guys can do, you can continue to do that for a longer period of time than men, which I'd never, ever heard of that. But anyway, I just thought it was an interesting caveat.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Great question, Valerie.
Did we answer it or did we skip volume? No, you kind of hit it. Does that answer your question, Valerie?
Yeah, I think because I mean, like you said, I've always been told, oh, for women, you don't want to do those high weights. You'd rather, lower weights, but do more of them. So then when I come to the workout and they're throwing 150s at me, I think, what is happening? The opposite of what I know. So just curious.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So just to make sure I understand you correctly. So when you say they to use less weight, you mean the actual, like, instead of using a 20-pound dumbbell, before you were told, oh, make sure let's say you use a 10-pound dumbbell. Is that what you mean?
Exactly. And do 20 reps versus 20 and do 10 or, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And the reason that is it's all marketing. Okay. And it's easier to sell it. Like if I were going to try to sell you to a program, I would want to make it sound like it's specifically for women, and I don't want you to look like a dude, because for most women do not want to get all big and muscular, even though the vast majority, it's impossible for women to get big and bulky like dudes, even if they tried. There are some outliers, but it's almost impossible. And so if I were to try to sell you to my program and I'd say, hey, guess what, Valerie, I'm going to have you use really light weights and you're going to do lots of repetitions. That's a much easier sell, because typically women have a fear if they lift heavy, they're going to turn into the Incredible Hulk. Okay. And that's why that's been propagated for so long.
Yeah. And so to answer the question then, like I said, all rep ranges are useful. That one's not extra useful. A spectrum is useful. And so what you'll find too is in a lot of those programs too, they'll be doing like 8-pound weights, and they could do an exercise that you could do 30, 40 reps, but they'll tell you to do 20. And so you're not achieving a lot of muscular failure in those. And so that's why you see a lot of those like body pump workouts, or like, trying to think of some of the classes. A lot of the classes I hear where it's just a lot of very lightweight moving fast. That's good to get your heart rate up, but it's basically cardio. There's not a ton of muscular fatigue being achieved. And so, yeah, a lot of women come in, they're
it's
like,
oh, strength training.
Yes. And to put in perspective, I was looking up because I was trying to remember, because I remember I was talking to a client about this recently where I'm like, Scarlett Johansson, would you say she looks like a man? They're like, no, not at all. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I would say that. And I remember seeing an interview where she was talking about her workouts, and she was deadlifting 245 pounds.
Yes.
And there's nothing magical about being that strong. It's just that she's been weightlifting for long enough that that's what she does. She needs to hit muscular failure. It's all about hitting muscular failure, whether you're at 6 reps or 20 reps. And so you pick a weight that's appropriate for the rep range that you want. So if you need 20 pounds to fail at 10 reps, grab 20 pounds. If you need 12 pounds to fail at 15 reps, grab 12 pounds.
Cool.
No,
that's awesome. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's very true, because today I was doing like 1-arm shoulder press. I started out at 30, and ideally, you want to do 12, 15 reps, right? So I was barely able to get 10 because it was just, and I just got to the point where I was completely burned out. It just stops, and you just can't do it. So we went down to 25, did the 12 to 15 without a problem. And the thing was, you have good form. If you don't, with heavier weight, and you may get, a few reps, but you're going to get sloppy with your form because it's not comfortable. It's not going to execute as well.
Yes, very good point for 2 reasons. One, you'll incorporate other muscle groups. Best case scenario is that instead of hitting your shoulder, you're going to be working your core. And that's best case scenario. Worst case scenario, you get injured, and you can't work out if you're injured. So very, very good point, Jeff.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Cool. All right. So let's go to progressive overload. And like I kind of framed this before, progressive overload is, I think, a simple concept to understand. But when it comes to actually applying it, this is where most people fail and where most personal trainers or trainers fail. Okay. In the most simplistic form, okay, progressive load, it's a fundamental principle in the fitness world, and its role in sustainable weight loss is basically it's this. It's the idea of gradually increasing the stress. Keyword stress. I didn't say weight. I didn't say increase the number of reps. I said increase the stress placed upon your body during exercise, in our case, strength training over time. Okay. So this stress could be in the form of, you know, how much weight you lifted, how many repetitions you did, the number of sets done, reducing the rest time. And then my personal favorite the way to increase progressive overload is tempo. Okay. Especially as I turned 40 this year. Mazel tov to me. And before, especially when I was younger, the only way that I thought of progressive overload was increasing the amount of weight I used or increasing the number of repetitions I did. Now, those two things are fundamental. And for most people starting out, those are your two like cornerstones, if you will. Okay. But there's also tempo. There's also incorporating more volume. So when I think of progressive overload, like for me personally, I can get, let's say I do 3 sets of 10 on dumbbell bench press. Instead of going up in weight, I will use the same weight, but I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, pause, and then I press up explosively. So I'm using the same weight, but I'm making it a lot harder on my muscles, more stress, because my tempo has slowed down a lot. Does that make sense? Any thoughts on progressive overload, Noah?
I mean, yeah, I agree. It's more than it's multifaceted. There's many ways to do it, and it's a very important distinction where it's more than just putting weight on the bar. And honestly, if you incorporate all of them, you'll find that more weight will end up going on the bar, which is very important.
Yes, which is ironic.
Yes, right? So typically people who are just like, I can only do as hard as I can, as much weight as I can, always, every single time, will typically fall behind the people who end up taking, I say breaks, but stints of coming down, pause reps, like a full 1 Mississippi on the chest and back up, because you're controlling the movement, you're working different muscles, you're stabilizing them. And it's a symptom of novelty, I always say, the soreness. So it's not like, so we start a program, right? And typically people in the first week will get really, really sore. Like, oh my gosh, I can barely walk up the stairs. Oh, this is terrible. And then you notice we change about every 4 weeks, sometimes 5 weeks. And during the next program, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm sore all over again. And typically that's more symptom of novelty. It's not that you were exercising any less intense in the last one, it's that your body adapts, and that as you get better in one sphere, you want to hit another area, and that's going to be difficult and challenging, and your muscle's going to be like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, we need to adapt all over again. And so don't think that if you're not sore, that is a symptom that you're not achieving any results or pushing yourself, or that you need to push yourself more often or harder. It's typically a sign of, okay, let's change things up, let's change the paradigm, let's change the movements a little bit.
Yeah. And the reason why most people don't do this well is they don't have a plan. Most people, when they go into the gym to work out, they don't know any idea of what they're going to do. They just go into the gym and they just randomly pick movements and they haphazardly pick weights. Okay. So they don't know, like, if you don't have a plan, like, you're not going to get where you need to be. And then for trainers, let's say they create a plan. If they're not documenting how much weight you're using and how many repetitions you're doing, they're just guessing. Okay. And if they're just guessing on, hey, do this, do that, pick that much weight, can you, quote unquote, get progressively better? A little bit. But imagine if you took the time and you had a 4 to 5 week plan, and as you implemented that plan, you could see, this is how much weight I used, this is how many reps I got, and you can rate how hard the workout was. And so you have data, so that, because you're not going to remember how much weight you used or how many repetitions you got. When I was younger, I swore that I was going to remember. The only thing I ever remembered was how much I could bench press. That was it. Okay. But if you have that data, the next time you go in to do that workout, guess what? You can see, okay, I used this much weight and I used this many repetitions. And then based off of how you performed and how you felt, you can make an educated decision so that you can appropriately progress yourself. That is time consuming, creating a plan. It's also tedious to document how much weight you're actually using, how many repetitions you got, which is why most trainers and most people fail to do it, thus become disillusioned and end up quitting. This is kind of cheating into the next thing, why personalized, like having a customized training plan is so important. If you're all doing the same workout with the same repetitions, that doesn't make sense. And it's not going, one, you can get hurt, but two, it's not specifically designed for you, and it's just haphazard. Okay. Anyways, I'm sure you have thoughts on that, Noah.
I mean, there's a lot to hit there as far as the personalized workouts or
progressive overload. We'll hit personalized here in a minute.
I mean, yeah, I was gonna say you hit the nail on the head of the logging. That's why I love the app. Shout out to our app so much. That it takes all the workout for you, just plug it in, and then you can see over time, because that what gets measured, gets managed and improved. And so when you can see the weight going up, that's a sign that A, we love to see it because that's a sign that you're building muscle, because if you're getting stronger, muscle is probably being built. And B, it takes the thought process out of it so that you can just focus on the workout and then just plug it in during your rest times. But yeah, I cannot stress enough how time and time again, every study talks about people who log their workouts perform way better and see much better results than people who don't. Because like you said, you just walk in the gym, you just work out whatever, you do whatever. The ordering of workouts do matter. That's something that would probably be for another time. That would be more for something fun for me and Kellen to talk about than maybe you guys, because it's a little bit more the nitty gritty. But yeah, cannot stress enough that's why every time we push you, we're like, hey, you did 9 reps last time. Let's see what 10 looks like. And that little bit of pushing is what's going to help you see those results over time. So totally agree.
And here's an example of actually this week. So I train a lady in Washington State, and her issue is, and she's online, and she's what we call hypermobile. Okay, so anyway, we do it over Zoom. So anyway, she was doing a goblet squats, which is where you hold the weight in the front. And she was using, I think, a 20-pound dumbbell to do that. And she's like, I don't feel this in my legs at all. I feel it in my hips. And so anyway, and without me, this is before I saw her move. She was just describing. I was like, are you by chance hypermobile? And she goes, what's that mean? And I was like, so have you always been super elasticy and like you could, touch your toes and do the splits and you never even tried? She's like, how did you know? And the reason is she's hypermobile is her muscles, instead of her muscles supporting her body structure, she relies on her ligaments. Okay. And so I was like, hey, this is going to be really weird, Catherine, but we're not going to use weights this workout. I'm going to reduce your tempo and control your tempo. I'm going to force your stinking legs to support your body mass. And so I had her do the way I did progressive overload with her, and I customized it to her and her program, is I had her go, okay, you're just going to do a body weight squat. 3, 2, 1. I had her pause at the bottom, and I had her contract her legs as hard as she could for about a second and a half. I was like, now think about squeezing your quads and coming up. And she did that. And she did 3 reps. We actually ended up doing 3 sets of 8. And she's like, I have never felt my legs burn so much in my entire life. And the reason that is one, because she's hypermobile, but the importance of knowing how to properly progress based off of where you're at and the issues that you have is so important. That's kind of a segue into the personalized thing. But before we jump into that, does anybody have any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Angela had one in the chat. I'll say as well.
Oh, sorry.
That's a separate thing. Maybe we should do a whole episode on that sometime of the mind-muscle connection. That's insane. But that's probably what she was learning too, is literally how to contract the muscle and what it should feel like, which is really important. Because otherwise, like you said, if your muscles can't handle it or you don't engage them, then your tendons and ligaments do, and that's how you get injured. So anyway, to answer Angel's question, so how do you know how much muscle weight we have gained? So best way to know is to get your body fat percentage tested, and then you can see the difference there. So there's something called body recomposition, which is basically where you lower your body fat percentage to increase your muscle, and that's something that can be going on. So I've seen some people who largely maintain the similar weight or lose very little weight, but then we tested them like a month or 2 later and they just lost like a ton of fat and put on a good amount of muscle. Typically most common in newbies. It gets harder the more experienced lifter you are, but basically the best way to do it is to get a body fat percentage test, whether it be on a scale or a DEXA scan or something like that at the beginning and then later on. But if you didn't have that or don't have access to it, the way your clothes fit different, whether you're getting stronger. That won't help you know the exact number. They'll let you know that you're putting some on. And then, sorry,
so it's the document I sent you, right? Like the paper I sent you the other day?
Yes.
Is that what it is?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So that broke down all the characteristics for your body. So you would look at one before and one after, and it would show the difference in your lean body mass that you have present, the body fat, the amount that you have present. The ideal goal is that it comes down. So that's why one of the things we talk about is when you push people to lose weight at a healthy rate, not too fast, because that's where you want to make sure that we're losing the body fat and not the muscle, because you can actually lose weight and have a higher body fat percentage. So if you look at those numbers, Angela, the way they would calculate that is they take your total fat mass and divide it by your total weight, and that would equal your body fat percentage, if that makes sense.
Okay. Now, do you remember when I had the, when I bought that scale?
The scale.
That report that I sent to you way ago, is that kind of the same thing as well?
Yes.
It was like, I don't know when it was, but it was a while ago.
I probably plugged it in the app. I could double check. If not, I could find it in our texts, I'm sure. Okay.
So like that, I can at least compare, I guess, that one with the one that just got done, to understand it better, I guess.
Yeah. And Angela, it's really important, especially if you're using a DEXA scan or whatever you're using, there is a margin of error in those. Okay. So it's super important to use the exact same machine, ideally at the exact same time, in the exact same state you were in. Because a DEXA scan is a good one. The best one you can possibly do is what's called a dunk tank. And those are it's like $60, $80 for one try. Those are by far the most accurate form you can do. And those, if they're done well, you can do them anywhere. The thing with the DEXA scan, just to be cognizant of, is there's like a 2 to 8% to some even 10% difference in what it actually is, which is a lot, which is why it's so important if you're going to do a DEXA scan or whatever else kind of scans that you're going to do, it's on the same machine at the same time, ideally after you've been fasted overnight. Okay. Because like I do DEXA scans typically once a month. I'm that guy. And and I use the same machine at the same time, but I've been guilty of, I'm really hungry or I'm really thirsty when I wake up. And I've taken one where I didn't drink before I went in and I didn't eat. And the difference between that one and the one where I ate and drank was drastic. So much like the data that I got there's no way it could be accurate. I would have loved it to be accurate, but it wasn't. Okay. So you just have to be really cognizant of that. And so the important thing is to consistently get them and to consistently do them in the same way. So you have a narrative. Does that make sense?
Yes. Cause I don't know. I'm always fussing at Noah how I'm not losing the amount of weight that I would like to lose. But I know that he's like, you're on track or whatever it may be. But if I'm gaining the muscle, at least I will feel a little bit better. Like if I can see it, I'm like, okay, at least I have some muscle there that I'm building. And even if I'm not losing the weight, I mean, at least I'm building some muscle to tone it up or whatever, maybe. So.
Yeah. So Angela, the cheapest and easiest way to tell if you're gaining muscle is if you're using more weight, if you feel stronger and like you can perform better. So let's say you did a goblet squat when you first started and you did 3 sets of 10 with 20 pounds. Now you're using 30 pounds. The only way that is physically possible after the neurological adaptation is because you gain muscle mass. There is no other explanation. It would be like driving a car with like, you basically, if you're a car and you can go 100 miles as a fat car, okay, let's just call it a fat car. Okay, now this fat car has done resistance training, and on the same tank of gas, you can now go 120 miles with your gas. Essentially, your miles per gallon got better. That's kind of how you think about strength training. I can do more weight, or I can get more reps, or going back to progression, I can do more of this thing. That means I've gotten stronger, therefore I have more muscle. Does that make sense at all?
Yes.
And then also keep an eye out for either measurements or if clothes fit differently or if you see a visual difference. those are things to keep an eye out too. Those will be a little less gradual. You'll probably need like pictures to see because you see yourself every day, so you wouldn't see it just like glancing in the mirror most likely.
And then a caveat with clothes, especially for women, is you'll notice it typically in your tummies, but then what a lot of, not a lot, but I would say 60-50% based on my experience, they start freaking out because their butt pants start to feel tighter. Okay. That's because your butt muscles. So this is weird. The butt muscle, if you don't use your butt muscles, they become dormant. Most people, we only activate 30% of our butt muscles. I got this from he's called the butt guy, Brett Contreras. But anyway, so typically people, they can only use 30% of their butt muscles because if we don't use it, we lose it. That's what he says. Okay. And here's the thing. But when you start working out, those muscle fibers that have been inactive, they awaken, especially with ladies for whatever reason, typically. And when those suckers activate and you start those muscles starting to expand and grow, it's a good thing. It means you're becoming toned, but it can make you be like, oh my word, my butt feels like it's getting bigger and my pants are getting a little bit tighter down there. That can be kind of scary, but that's typically a good sign you're putting on muscle. That's the only caveat I'm going to say with ladies, because I've heard it so often. But I'm like, what's your waist measurement? Like Noah said.
Sure.
I don't have problems there. My problems are like the top. Like I want to lose the stomach and the back area. Whereas my problems, I don't have butt issues.
All right.
Cool.
Fair enough.
But yeah, it's just, yeah.
You want butt issues? No, I'm joking.
I have issues like I cannot lose the stomach area or like the back fat, as I say. That's where and I've been doing all these workouts. Like I went today, like I'm doing it as I should. I know Noah's always on me over it and stuff because sometimes I don't log it because it's tough to find the actual exercise on the system, so I don't log it. But I have been doing some of the back exercises and kind of following the grid and hoping that I'm doing it right because if you're doing it by yourself, then I don't know if I'm doing it right, but I try to follow some type of direction and to get like that back firm so it could to lose that fat back there. That's my main thing, my back thing.
Yeah. So I hold, so like your love handles, right? That's what we're talking about. So that's my weak spot, or my love handles. Cause I used to be 308 pounds. I used to be a morbidly obese kid. I was 225 pounds when I was 9 and 10. Like I look like you put an air hose in my mouth and let it rip. I was giant. And here's the thing with the way our bodies store body fat. We're basically like a camel, Angela. And what that means is we all innately store body fat in certain areas. So like it sounds like for you and I, in our lower bellies and in our love handles. Okay. And the way that we get rid of that, there are no special exercises, unfortunately. It all comes back to nutrition. Okay. Are you in a caloric deficit? Are you eating adequate amounts of protein? And what sucks is I'll lose weight from my face the first thing. I really don't care if my face looks a little puffy. I want it to go from my love handles. But just like a camel, the last place we lose the fat is typically the first place you want it to go. And so it's just time and consistency for those real troubled areas, which I know is hard to hear, but that is really the truth. Not fun, but true.
One more thing. And
yeah.
And I know the answer, but I want to try. I have restricted my eating a lot, and I have lost a lot of pounds. But obviously, you gain it right back, right? Because you're not doing it the healthy way. But I also wasn't exercising. Okay, I was just doing it just to get into an outfit that I need to get into for a wedding, right? So, if I were to do that and lose this, all this weight like this, which I can, I've done it. And then, but exercise, and then get back to my calorie that I should be eating, the regular calories that I should be eating. Would I be successful in keeping the weight off and still building muscle?
That is a great question. Noah, do you want to take it?
I was gonna say, because I have a little more context. So just, Angela, was it gastric bypass or gastric sleeve that you had?
Bypass.
Bypass. Okay. So yeah. So like we talked about before, like you said, you kind of know the answer to it. So part of what we talked about, where It's more common in women, especially like my clients who've had those gastric operations. They lose it really, really fast. So you lose a lot of your metabolism because a lot of the muscle gets lost with it. And so the recovery from that is tough. So that's why I love that you're doing it alongside resistance training now, which will be huge. And so that will help increase, well, you'll maintain or increase muscle as you're losing it this time, right? Especially if it's at a slightly slower rate. That's why we've had to restrict calories a lot lower than we would for normal people too. But yeah, so if we do it in that rate, the next step is to increase it at a very segmented rate. So let's say about 50 calories a week, maybe 75. And do that at a rate until we get to what would be about your maintenance calories. Versus a lot of people do that and they're like, sweet, I made it, let's party. They go take a vacation, they come back like 6 pounds heavier. What your body can do is, the way we get fatter and smaller is our fat cells actually increase and decrease in size, which is cool. That's awesome. That's about what it sounds like should happen. But what they discovered recently is that if you lose weight extremely quickly and put it on extremely quickly, not only do you increase and decrease the size of the fat cells, you get more fat cells.
Yes.
Your body is better at storing fat because it's thinking, yo, we just survived a famine. We have to be able to store as much as possible in case another famine comes. And so that's why it'll be a little bit tougher. But with building the muscle and stair-stepping it back to maintenance and then keeping at that calories, you'll be a lot more successful in keeping it off.
Okay. That's what I want to know. I don't want to be thinking about my calories anymore. Like, I want to be able to go somewhere and eat and not worrying about, oh my gosh, is this going to make me gain 5 pounds? I just want to so I want to lose the weight and then just keep exercising and then, getting the strength. Like I said, I didn't think I was going to like lifting weights as much as I like it. So it's a good thing. I've always done cardio and I never kept up with it because I hate it. Never done weights until now. So it's, I'm excited. I like the weightlifting.
Yeah,
I
and
like
then just one
much.
No, that there's no such thing.
Well,
just
for my
one thing
husband, it is. He's like, I don't want you looking like a dude. I'm like, I'm not gonna look like a dude.
No, no, it would be impossible. But one thing I would want to warn you on though, Angela, is, and this is where we lose, unfortunately, a lot of our best clients, is they lose the weight. They're like, I got it, I'm gonna go on my own, and they don't do a proper reverse diet. Okay, and so important. And Noah just briefly went over what that looks like. The second thing is unfortunately there is no cure for being able to, after you get to the weight you want to be, and eating as much as you want to and whatever you want to and maintain that weight.
Oh, no. I don't want to like go and just go ahead and eat 3,000 calories after that or whatever. No, I just want to be able to like, okay, if I do go somewhere and I eat, I'm not worrying about it. Because like now everywhere I go, it's like I'm worrying and constantly worrying and counting calories and like I don't want to worry about that. So I know if I'm fit, if I'm where I want to be with weight and I'm still working out, I would hope that my body works with me and says, okay, if I want to go to a restaurant and have, shrimp or whatever whatever I eat, that I'm not going to be worrying about, geez, now I'm going to get on the scale and I'm going to be 5 pounds more and I'm going to like have a damn fit. So,
So you can, like, as you go through this journey, you're going to become really, like, logging your food is such a powerful tool because you're pretty cognizant of how many calories are in things, probably now since you've been logging, right? You have a good idea. You can just look at something and be like, that is going to be a ton of calories. So one, can you choose to eat something that's super high in calories? Yes. But if you consistently do that, I don't care how hard you train, you're probably still going to get fatter. But hopefully you're developing habits where that is not normative. Okay. And that is the exception, not the rule, where most people, the rule is they eat healthy and they eat like trash most of the time. So like me personally, I eat stuff that, like, I had pizza on Sunday. All right. I think I had 4 pieces or something. Yeah. 4 or 5. I forget what. So I had a lot. Okay. But, you can do that. But like, do I eat pizza every day? No. So there's like, you'll learn how your body responds to certain foods. And it's a slow process. Okay. I'll just be honest with you, Angela. Can you get there? Yes. But it's just don't get where you need to be and then go crazy.
Oh, no. I worked too hard between everything. I was almost 300 pounds as well. So with the whole gastric, and first I lost a bunch of weight before the gastric, and then I broke my leg. and then I couldn't run anymore. And then that's where I gained all the weight back. So gastric was my kind of way out because I couldn't exercise to the level that I wanted to, or didn't know how to anyway, whatever it was. So that's why I ended up doing gastric, and I dropped to like 100 and something pounds, but then it's been creeping back up. I probably gained about another 30 pounds since the gastric. So that's where I don't want to get back into where I used to be. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool, guys. Well, we have got to go now. So Noah, we'll make a note, and next week we'll hit on the importance of a customized plan. We kind of went over it roughly, but we'll hit it next week. But I want to thank everybody for coming, and thank you so much for your input and questions. That does make it a lot better, not just for you, but typically the questions you ask are stuff that other people are thinking about. And then, so thanks so much for the participation. I hope you guys have an awesome week. And as I always say, go and be awesome. Cool, guys.
Appreciate you guys. Take care.
Right.
Wow.
Thank you. Take care.